Hello, my name is Simon. Welcome to Why Is That, a free speech platform where we explore big ideas and the controversies of our time. Hello, beloveds, and welcome back to another episode. I'm moving to Australia. Why is that? I just really needed a change in my life. I've got a book to finish. I've got some personal development stuff to do. So, screw it. Let's move countries. Don't worry. I will be keeping the show going. And due to magic, pretty much, I can send it over the interwebs and it will be broadcast in Auckland. For those people listening internationally, I will be going on what's called an OE, which stands for Overseas Experience. That's something most New Zealanders do. In fact, the vast majority. Whether I'll stay in Australia or be more mobile, I don't know. But anyway, that's enough about me. I kind of want to do a follow-up from last week's show, which was episode number 40, and I put it on YouTube as The Madness of the Nazis and Merkel's Fourth Reich. In the show, I covered how basically both National Socialism, which is often just termed Nazism or Nazis, so the good name of socialism is never besmirched, and communism, which is Marxism, type of international socialism, and even fascism, are basically the same thing, as they're collectivist forms of government which require strict control over the population, over the economy. It basically needs coercion to keep going. A prime example of this is East Germany and the infamous Berlin Wall, which was the most visible sign of the Iron Curtain, the divide between the West and the communist East. But what a lot of people don't know is why the Berlin Wall was built, and would be most surprised that it did great service to world peace. You see, after World War II, the Americans and Western European powers occupied West Germany, and the Soviet Union occupied East Germany. And then Germany was split into West and East Germany along these lines, although Berlin, the capital that laid in East Germany, was split, or the Western powers occupying the west half of the city, and the eastern half being fully part of the communist state of East Germany, or the German Democratic Republic. How this is relevant is there was no border between East and West Germany, and there was free travel. So West Berlin, which was owned by West Germany and had the protection of Allied powers, was an island in the middle of communist East Germany, and itself was basically Western, and people from basically East Germany could go in there, buy Western goods, be exposed to Western trends, and people even lived in East Germany and went to West Berlin to work. So you got the unsurprising situation where a whole lot of people through the open border went to West Berlin and even flew out from there to go to West Germany, basically to flee the communist government. I mean, life under communism was terrible. You had to watch what you said. The living conditions were not great. They had you literally just had to cross the border into West Berlin to see a Western standard of living and how it was just so much better. So, of course, there was a real issue where basically all of East Germany could opt out of communism, walk across the border and flee through that way. And this was a real danger for communism. East Germany was hemorrhaging people and was an incredibly bad look on the communist way of life and governance. And it was becoming a major point of tension between the Soviet Union and the West, because, the Western powers were quite happy to help get people out of East Germany through that way. I mean, and as a present-day example, if the US-Mexican border wall was just gone, most of Mexico would just go north into the US. And this is basically what was happening at the time. And even though there was an administrative, line down Berlin of what was West and East Berlin, there was no physical border. So that's why the communists built the Berlin Wall. So there was an actual physical border to keep people in. Otherwise, the alternative would have just to start an armed conflict, because it was that dangerous to the communist way of life if people could just opt out of it. This, of course, was in stark contrast with the West, which had, democratic elections, multiple parties, a free market economy with multiple options of products. Basically, there was choice, and people could choose who they gave the support to, and whoever got a lot of support, of course, got a lot of power. And a lot of people who want power and control want to limit people's choice. And scarily, we see this today. I think some European political leaders are missing communism so much they're trying to bring it back. With the German-dominated EU, which is on track to becoming both the Fourth Reich and the European Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's quite a feat that can only be described as special. Basically, there are some new laws coming in which are very much reminiscent of Chinese-style net censorship, which is often referred to as the Great Firewall of China. I decided to do this show after watching this clip from a YouTuber called Rage After Storm. She's a German YouTuber and has some good insights into this law. I'll play this clip now.
Okay, I have to be honest. I wasn't exactly not expecting this. In fact, it's quite obvious that Germany would go this far because, let's face it, it's Germany. Anyway, what have Germany done this time? So, here we go. Heiko Maas, a German federal minister of justice, wants to pass a network enforcement law which is aimed at the monitoring and censorship of social media networks. In April 2017, the German cabinet passed a new legislation on hate speech that Germany is actually supposed to adopt in the summer. The new law enables Germany to fine social media companies up to 50 million euros for not reacting swiftly enough to illegal content or hate speech. The new law is called Netzwerkdurchsetzungsgesetz, or for those of you who don't like the way us Germans combine words for no fucking reason, Network Enforcement Law. So its main target is US tech giants. So we're talking Facebook, we're talking Twitter. These companies provide the main social media networks in Germany. 28 million Germans have an active Facebook account, whereas only over 5 million people in Germany have a Twitter account. Google has nearly 95% of the market share in search in Germany. The new law, or as they like to call it, NetzDG, aims to curb hate-based criminality in large social networks that have the potential to drive public opinions and to help improve law enforcement to evidence held by social networks. Sorry, can we just rewind that bit?
Improve law enforcement.
To improve law enforcement, huh? You mean to cut out the people giving their opinion on the detrimental actions made by the government, huh? That sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? In the German Democratic Republic, content which was considered harmful to the regime was strictly forbidden. The definition of harmful could be subjected to a number of different categories. Native portrayals of the German Democratic Republic were censored. This included criticisms and complaints of the standard of living and the standard of education inside the country. For example, if one comments on the refugee situation in Germany and talks about the inevitable destruction of German culture, be it partially or fully, it makes Germany and its political control rightly look bad. So this isn't just the negative portrayal of the country, it's the negative portrayal of the ideological political regime. But obviously, this is considered as hate speech. Because if you mention immigration and refugees, you're the biggest asshole there is. Maybe the government's main concern is not exactly refugees and migrants and the way people speak about them, it's the way people speak about the way they have dealt with those refugees and the way they have dealt with those migrants. Perhaps they just use the race card to cover up their real reasons of censorship. Then again, maybe people are so indoctrinated with the postmodernist thought that racism is the actual concern. So again, it's just an observation. But it's important to remember that the punishments for those crimes in the German Democratic Republic and Germany now differ quite a lot. Back then, people would be denied visa requests, people would be arrested, people would be picked up by a white van and never seen again, or worse. But nowadays, we are made to believe that only the social media networks are being affected by this. The fines on the social media outlets are mostly mentioned so that people believe that this censorship does not affect them. For example, if the content is considered clearly illegal, then it must be removed within 24 hours by the social media network. Any other illegal content must be taken down within 7 days. When removing the content, the social network must save a copy of the content for evidence, remove all copies of the illegal content, implement effective measures to prevent this illegal content from appearing again, and provide the user who posted the content with a reasonable explanation about why it was taken down. Can we just look at reasoned explanation? Taking down opinionated content in regards to the things that Germany mess up on, aka refugees, cannot be considered reasoned. In addition to this, NetzDG require the social media network to perform a quarterly report in German, including a general description of the network's attempts to prevent these criminal acts, the number of complaints received and the reason to why they're considered complaints, the number of complaints that required extra research, the number of complaints that resulted in a takedown, the average processing time for complaints, a description of the network's criteria for granting a takedown, a description of the personnel involved in processing these complaints, as well as their professional qualifications, language abilities, and training. The law also requires monthly reviews by managers of how the social network is handling everything. Any organizational deficiencies must be immediately addressed, or the company gets fined. These tedious tasks that the social media networks need to go through will inevitably create excess expenses. This goes into employing the staff, training them so that they do not make a mistake, because mistakes in this instance will cause a heck of a lot of money loss. In addition to this, notice how adamant that the reports are in German. Sure, translating isn't terrible, but you need to remember how much of a difficult language German is. And if you work on a social media network and if you're creating reports to this extent, you're going to need to be pretty good at German. So this means that it ensures the jobs that are created are mostly given to native-speaking Germans, or a small proportion of the people that have learnt German very, very well. They basically want to benefit their own country by creating jobs and enforcing a rule onto a social network. It's like hitting two birds with one stone. So my prediction is, once the companies find too much after a certain level of slip-ups, the network will then begin to decide to pull out of the country due to the huge amount of costs. Once the loss exceeds the gain, what's the point of them staying in the country?
Yeah, no, fuck off, Germany. I don't want you.
If this happens, and I say if, a huge platform when loads of people are exposed to other people around the world will be completely gone in Germany. In turn, the rest of the world will know less and less about Germany and what they are doing to their own people. Because after all, televised media tells us absolutely nothing. One less platform produces one less way of exposure. But obviously, all of these effects that I've mentioned aren't all a given. My point is not that the censorship is just a small thing, and now we can go back to complaining about why CNN are angry about Donald Trump eating 2 scoops of ice cream. No, my point is that the censorship is a huge thing.
You can see the full clip at Rage After Storm. It's called You Will Not Like Germany's New Law. I have a couple of thoughts. The first one, about 1.5 years ago, with the mass sexual assaults at the Cologne New Year celebrations conducted by Muslim migrants. Now, the only reason that came to the world's attention was because of the internet and social media. According to the Cologne police, that New Year's night was uneventful, very peaceful, as opposed to 1,000 German women reporting being raped, groped, harassed by Muslim migrants to Germany. I mean, the authorities were quite happy to try to sweep it under the rug. So I think there is a very real possibility they might try to drive out social media platforms such as YouTube, Twitter, Facebook from Germany. I mean, it's a win-win situation. As pointed out, German is quite a complex language, and, you have to be fluent in it to be able to write those reports. Now, this brings to the second point, and I think it's quite prescient. She mentions the German Democratic Republic, which, of course, was the communist state of East Germany, who were infamous for the Stasi, their secret police, who made quite a number of people disappear, and also the level of distrust they caused in East Germany, as basically everyone was informing on each other to the Stasi. It was insane. Now, these were very, very bad people. And a couple of years ago, it was broken by Breitbart how the German government hired ex-Stasi agents to patrol Facebook for xenophobic comments. Now, there are a lot of people in Germany who are not happy with accepting in millions and millions of new migrants who are unemployable, basically. They are illiterate in their own language. They don't speak German. They're going to suck up their tax dollars and welfare. Even Angela Merkel had to admit they have higher rates of criminality, but German people have to be tolerant. So a lot of just day-to-day Germans have posted their concerns on social media, like Facebook, and have had the police show up at their door to investigate whether they're committed a hate crime. I mean, that's insane. These former Stasi agents belong to a group called Network Against Nazis. Now, in Germany, it's illegal to own Nazi paraphernalia, things like swastikas. It's illegal to have. They are super strict on that, except for when you have Muslim migrants doing the Nazi salute, chanting Hail Hitler in German to horrified onlookers who would not say anything about it because it would be racist. In fact, it's quite telling the number of agendas. Remember the Podesta email leaks, which I like bringing up at every opportunity, as it just exposed how evil the Democrats in the US are. Well, one of them was a briefing that was given to John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. The briefing document itself is called Multikulturistan, a House of Horrors for Ordinary Germans, a document that states that no Western country has a successfully integrated Muslim community. If you know anything about Islam, that's not surprising. They keep themselves separate on purpose as a religious practice. But most interestingly, the people who says, support the mass Muslim migration into Germany are aging communists in their last hurrah. So leftover 60s rabble and relics of the German Democratic Republic dictatorship. End quote. Just because communism fell doesn't mean we can't bring down the West by mass Eastern migration. Now, we hear in the media all the time the far right, like Marie Le Pen was dubbed far right. She's actually a socialist who just believes in keeping national borders and national security and having immigration controls. She's not on the right at all. She's a frickin' socialist, but far right. And of course, this is also what's happening with the alt-right, who is very nebulous, so I can't really... I'm a bit confused about how to describe the alt-right. But we don't hear about the far left, who are far more dangerous. And it really shows mainstream media bias that we, never hear anything about the far left. Sort of, for example, like Antifa, who have strong communist leanings, they've held a number of riots across the Western world, and the media doesn't condemn them. Violent actions, riots. In fact, they got supported by the media for some of the ones in Berkeley. Well, the first one, not the second one, where they got their asses kicked, also known as the Battle of Berkeley, which I did a show on that. To give you a case study on how just messed up some people on the far left are, another Breitbart story involving an ex-Stasi agent that makes an appearance, called Parenting Magazine Warns Blonde, Cheerful Families Dangerous, Likely to be Right-Wing. This article was sparked by a article that was in the Baby and Family magazine in Germany, who told readers to beware of families who are inconspicuous and cheerful, as these are warning signs to indicate they are right-wing and thus dangerous, quote-unquote. Depicted with illustrations featuring solely blonde women and children, the report says ordinary parents must take actions against right-wing families and make it clear their ideology has no place in the world. Not just, well, we have a different opinion from you. You have no place having right-wing beliefs. This report cites Heinrich Ravner of the controversial, I can't even pronounce that, Amadou Antonio Foundation, and warns that, quote, children of right-wing parents are not necessarily different from other children, but says they are often very obedient and might not talk much. Other highlights of the article is one person explains that right-wing families are not unlike ordinary families in that they teach their own values. The important difference with extreme right-wing groups, however, is that these values are often, quote, strongly geared at Germanic customs and traditions, end quote. Shocking for Germany. One of these so-called experts say right-wing children are aware they should keep their family lives private, but she added that a telltale sign of right-wing extremism in kindergarten children is that there are usually no American logos on their parents' clothing. God, I hate how petty these people are. They're just... But it gets better. This Amadeus Antonio Foundation was founded by an ex-Stasi agent who still runs it and who has declared it publicly vital for the European Union to change its immigration policy in order to turn Europe non-white. A quote translated from German into English from this woman says, "This is very important. You have to change the educational system and self-understanding of states. They are not only white anymore, or only Swedish, or only Portuguese, or only German. They are multicultural places in the world. Oh, and look, the foundation has a role in the government's crackdown on people who criticize the open-door mass migration and violent behavior of migrants towards the German people." You think a lot of these migrants coming into Germany would be grateful, but a lot of them are just, oh my God, they go around punching people, pushing women downstairs. There are real issues that need to be discussed, but they're trying to shut this down because, in their own words, they want Europe to be non-white. They want to radically change the continent and nations. They're dangerous extremists, and yet they're the ones going around going, these are dangerous right-wing groups who promote nationalism. Because, as the article states, right-wing ideas have no place in the world. Who thinks like this? Bigots think like this. I mean, I'm not a fan of Marxism. I think it's evil. Am I advocating for the crackdown of free speech and freedom of expression for Marxists? No. Would they advocate for the crackdown on my free speech and my freedom of expression? Yes, they would. And this is why left-wing collectivism is dangerous, because it is coercive. And some people might find it ridiculous, me going, the European Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's a bit far, isn't it? They're hiring ex-Stasi agents. As a means to end? No, because they seem to be ideologically aligned. They want mass migration of people who will be welfare dependent. And as mentioned before on the show, this seems to be a tactic many people are using to try to subvert democracy. They will work hard to give them citizenship, and they will only vote for the left. You know the thing that pisses me off? These politicians live in the whitest, richest neighborhoods. These migrants will come in to working class neighborhoods, cause all hell there, and the politicians, the political elite, will not be touched by this. When in the show I have talked about the sexual assaults committed by the Muslim migrants in the UK with the rape gangs, and in Germany and Cologne, and how Sweden has become the rape capital of Europe, these are very real people who are being affected. Thousands upon thousands of women who have been attacked, and millions more who do not feel safe. Now I want to play a clip by Rage After Storm, the YouTuber I played before, from a video she did called The Aristocracy Wins Again, regarding Macron winning in France and his whole thing about bringing millions more migrants. And she's just about to read from an article from the head of the UN office in Geneva.
Has warned that Europe must prepare for the arrival of millions of more migrants from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Well, it looks like I'm going to need to buy that anti-rape underwear that's been advertised lately. It's gotten to the point where I have to joke about this. I'm using this as a damn coping mechanism. I am shitting myself. It's bad enough that going out at night is basically a no-no for me. But on top of that, I live right next to the French border.
Does anyone particularly want to accuse her of being an evil right-winger full of hate, whose views have no place in the world, as being concerned for one's personal safety? Just wrong now? How in your first world country would you not like to be able to go out at night? In fact, how long will it remain a first world country? We're bringing in millions of people who require welfare to live, who will not contribute to the economy at all, who will not integrate, who are threatening to turn you into a minority in your own country. And the disturbing thing is, something like the Cologne mass sexual assaults could happen again, and the authorities could attempt to cover it up again. But if it's mentioned on social media, then it's hate speech. €50 million fine for not taking it down. So it's going to be taken down. And it's going to be far more difficult for people to get the word out. And if you looked at the kind of shit they've pulled, Sweden becomes the rape capital of Europe. And they're just giving out anti-rape bracelets to young women. Yeah, like wearing a bracelet's going to do anything. Where after the Cologne assaults, the mayor's like, well, try to keep the foreign men at arm's length. Yes, use the force. Just put your arm out. And if you think what goes on in Europe has nothing to do with you, if their economy collapses, the whole world is going to suffer hugely. Not only could Europe destabilize in August, so the South African government effectively wants to take away the land from the white farmers, which was what they did in Zimbabwe, which led to the economy collapsing. That could destabilize all of Africa, adding literally millions of people into those who want to go into Europe. If you think the US is going to save anybody, Obama doubled the national debt by himself for all previous presidents that have gone before. They can only pay the interest, not even the principal of their debt. And if it all blows up and something bad happens to you and you say, why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything. Exactly, you didn't do anything. Join me, Simon and guests, 104.6 FM at 3:15 on Tuesdays for my show, Why Is That? Or anytime online at planetaudio.org.nz/. Why Is That? You can also type in Why Is That into YouTube, and it's hosted on the channel Dialectic already.